Welcome, it's Debrup on Air. I'm your host Debrup Laha, and this is The International Lens, where we dive into the real life stories of international students in the US. I have been in your shoes, earning both my bachelor's and master's degrees here, and now I'm working full time in the States. This podcast series is for you, whether you're already studying in the US or just planning to. Every week, I'll bring you conversations with students from all over the world, sharing their journeys, challenges, and triumphs. My mission? It's to give you the insights and inspirations you need as you carve your own path in the US. So, whether you're dreaming of studying here or already on your journey, this podcast is your ultimate guide. Tune in and let's make your American adventure one to remember. Machine learning, as we all know, is transforming the way we interact with technology, from recommendation systems to even self driving cars. But what does it really take to excel in this field? Well, we'll find out more in today's episode as we have Ms. Niharika Krishnan, who's a recent grad in computer science from NYU Tandon School of Engineering. Niharika, firstly, thanks for taking your time to speak with me today.
Thank you, Debrup. Yeah,
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me in this episode of yours. It's really great to have a chat with you.
Likewise, I was going to invite you in one of the episodes, and I was wondering when is the right time to talk to Niharika because she's very, like, you have excelled in the field, and so I wanted to bring your experience in front of everyone.
Thank you. It's not not there yet, but yeah, I'm really, really happy to share my experience.
Neat. So, to begin with, could you tell us a little bit about your background and your educational qualifications?
Sure, sure. Yeah. Thanks for the intro. I'm Niharika Krishnan. I currently work as a machine learning engineer at a major finance company in New York City. I graduated from NYU in 2023, majored in computer science. A little bit of maybe background info. So I spent my formative years growing up in India. Um, Changed about 7 states, 8 different schools because of military backgrounds. I loved new experiences, diverse places, learned a lot. Undergrad, I did in information technology, and that is where I first got introduced to machine learning through a couple of internships. Started programming in Python, ended up falling in love with the language, just the way the syntax and the way we work with it. And then a couple of internships in healthcare got me into machine learning. Graduated in 2019 and then worked for about 2 years on the retail side for Walmart through TCS. That was a great experience because it was the first time we are actually putting things into production. So it kind of gave me a pretty good a background of how things work in corporate. And then decided that I wanted to actually understand end to end of how these machine learning systems are built, developed, deployed. Ended up deciding to do my master's at NYU, and then here I am a couple of years later.
Interesting that you mentioned that you were first exposed to a bit in healthcare, then you went
Yeah,
in retail, and now you're in finance.
I'm in finance. Yes. So I think the underlying constant is the technology, but the industries have been different.
Right. So this is probably a technology which is used in pretty much all industries, and all sectors are somehow trying to use AI and ML tools in some way or the other.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. You mentioned you are coming from an IT background, so transitioning to CS was probably not that much of a transit or that much of a shift. But what's your suggestions for people who wants to come from other fields, like say electrical or electronics or even math, for example?
I think, yeah, you're right. I think IT pretty much had similar courses as computer science. There was a lot of overlap from different fields. In fact, I think math is kind of the core fundamental behind CS, or in fact, somebody who wants to specialize in machine learning. So I do see a lot of machine learning engineers now who are math or physics background. So I think that's actually a plus because that's your foundation, and then it's always easy to pick up a new programming language. So I think my advice is when you're trying to switch between from different fields to CS or different fields to machine learning, maybe just understanding why you want to do that switch and what part of computer science that you want to like maybe focus on because CS is vast, right? There's so many
Mhm.
things that you can um, specialize in or like get into. So maybe something you and you don't want your 4 years of like let's say a bachelor's to go waste. So maybe finding that sweet spot between what you're good at and where you want to use that, but maybe in a different field, I think is probably one way to think about it.
Right. I think it's a good point you mentioned to finding what is your strength rather than trying to excel
Yeah,
in all the sectors.
for sure. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were interested in ML from your undergrad days and after when you graduated. So what does it really take to crack these ML roles? Like, is it different from company to company and from industry to industry, or let's say like the tech versus non-tech, or even FANG?
Right. That's a good question actually. And I can speak from my internship experience because that's when, you're applying to so many different firms and then here you put in like so many applications. I think everybody out there must have put in like 300, 400 applications at least. I think from my experience, what I've understood is there are three categories how I would branch it, right?
Mhm.
First one would be more, I think, more FANG oriented or more uh, where they focus a lot on data structures algorithm as your first initial rounds, right? Because that's their hiring pattern. They're not going to move away from it. So you need to clear those online assessments, need to clear those lead code questions, and then it moves on to more ML system design and more ML resume or more ML foundation algorithm questions. That's like one bucket. The second bucket, I think what was more was that they're a little less intensive on lead code or like on data structures. So you have like maybe lead code, easy, medium questions, and more seeing if you can code, seeing if you can do like test cases, edge cases. You're handling all the scenarios with machine learning as the couple of next rounds. And then I also came across this where there are another set of companies which are more maybe non-tech that focus only on machine learning. So they just give you like a Jupyter notebook and some data set, and it's like a take-home assessment that you have to give it back to them. And then the questions follow up on that as to what was your approach, why you did this, and then your resume and things like that. So this is how I think I would categorize interviews in this space.
Makes sense. And did you have like custom resumes for each of these roles, or did you apply with a single resume?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely had two resumes, one for machine learning and one for software, just regular software engineering. And I
Mhm.
think it's always good to have this because you also don't want to restrict yourself to just ML roles, although you start focusing on that, but then you also want to cast your net wider if, let's say, you're not getting callbacks in this period of time. So, yes, I did have two separate, but the two separate were very distinct in the sense that it when you look at the resume, it tells you a story that you look at your resume and you can say that, oh, this person is an SDE or fits into an SDE. So I think that's important rather than having everything everywhere and kind of not knowing an interviewer, not knowing where you might be a right fit.
Correct. All right. And during your internships, did you learn anything extra or anything special which helped you for your master's application or even for your full-time role?
Oh, you mean before like undergrad internships, right? For sure. I think it's all the experience that you gain in terms of projects, and it goes as a big part of your statement of purpose, right? You talk about what you have done during internships, the impact, you talk about the projects that you have done, and then why it interested you to pursue a master's and why specifically this field. So, definitely, I think maybe I would say the impact, the technology, and why I did it and why it interested me, I think is a key thing that you can map to when you build your SOP and convince why you want to move ahead in this field.
Right. I think impact is one of the most impactful things you want to mention in your resume. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense what you learned and gained from that previous experience.
Right, right.
Cool. And when you were doing your courses at NYU, did you think any courses that really stood out or which you want to suggest for future students?
Sure, yeah. I think for NYU specifically, and maybe I can speak towards how tandem courses are structured. They are more application oriented, which I liked. Sure, they have a theoretical component, but all of them had like maybe hands-on assessments and more project oriented, which directly helps with your interviews, right? And with if you're looking to go into the corporate. So I definitely think machine learning which was why I came here to do. I think that was a pretty good course in terms of understanding theory. Foundations of data science, and I don't know if this professor is still teaching at NYU. It was Professor Rumi Chunara. She was pretty good because it gave a good, you took a case study, you broke it down, you approached it like a business problem. So I think it was a good experience to have in college. Big data was again another good hands-on experience. So I think the courses at NYU are structured in such a way that only algorithms is compulsory. So you are free to choose um, like the courses that you want. So you can like specialize, let's say, have like an end-to-end understanding in different courses that you want to take. So I feel these three were the top highlights for me. Yeah.
Okay. And since you talked about case studies, are they
Mhm.
also applicable when you're interviewing for, let's say, the FANG companies, or is it mostly in consulting?
I think it's more consulting. I don't, at least with the interview companies I interviewed, I don't think I saw case studies in FANG, but consulting's for sure.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And so you did an internship in India, you worked full time, then you came to the US and you interned here as well while you were in masters. So what was your job application process like? Can you walk us through, and how did you get success in this?
Sure. Yeah, I think so I interned at Goldman Sachs. I'm also working with them full time here as a machine learning engineer. I think my process here, um, it's also very different from India. So I think here, one of the key things that people who are coming for masters have to understand is they apply very early, right? So I think applying early was a key, I think, during that time because finance companies specifically, they open their applications a year before. So if you want to intern in, let's say, May 2026, the applications open next month or like, or May of 2025, right? It kind of doesn't align with the timeline because you land up to a new country to do your master's in like August, but then when you land, you realize that the applications are already open, right? So I feel the timeline is you apply as soon as you come. Right? Your master's is probably not going to help you in your application for internship at least. And it was a different time back then, so I was lucky to get called back. So I applied in end of August. I think interviews were scheduled sometime in September, and by October I had the offers. So I was debating between like Goldman, Amazon, and Cigna at that point. Um, but yeah, I think applying early definitely is the key. And another thing I would suggest is maybe try apply with a referral wherever possible. Um, some companies don't allow, some companies do have for at an intern new grad level. So you would probably have to do some research over there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was also surprised. Like couple of days back, I saw that a big financial company in New York has already started their application for next summer, and this is already like spring of 2025, and
Yeah,
they're wondering why are we applying like months before even we have arrived to the US? They have not got their visas yet. So
right.
thing. It's very fast paced here, and the application process is definitely different. And since you mentioned also about referral, what is the process of referral like? Because I don't think anybody can just any employee for a referral. It just looks too odd.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword there. Like you want to find a balance between not like just reaching out randomly and be like, hey, give me a referral versus actually building connections. I think in terms of referral, what helps is one is to obviously reach out to your alumni. I think that's like the easiest connection. And NYU is a big school, and I'm sure like you have other students from other universities also. The alumni network is pretty big, and I think that should be your first way of reaching out to referrals. Another thing is like at least if you're in big cities like let's say San Francisco or New York or maybe somewhere in Bay Area, Chicago for that matter, there are a lot of meetups and a lot of these technology meetups that happen. So kind of a difference between big cities and like college towns. So you can leverage that too. I feel that really helps. Of course, if you have the time and the bandwidth to go, because it's a little more, it takes time. but that is also a good exposure where you can talk to people, learn, actually know what's out there in the industry, because industry is like going way faster. And building that organic connection, which might or might not help, lead to a referral. But I think that's also a good way.
And have you been to any of these meetups?
I do. I actually love doing that, and that's something I've been doing since India actually. And then it helps. It helps professionally. It helps you in ways that you probably not know. Maybe like project. It helps you in projects. It helps you finding those connections, internships. So yeah, I'm actually pretty actively involved in like the women in tech communities as well. There are so the spy ladies, there's like women in data science. Again, mine is all probably related to the machine learning space, but I know there are a lot of meetups that are more DevOps related, more cloud focused as well in the city. So I think going going there and talking to different people, seeing what they work on also helps.
I see. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the importance of big cities. I think that is one key aspect we get here is the different art of networking and big cities, because big cities always come with
Yeah,
the advantage of different networking events throughout. So coming back to the question
right.
for students, so do you suggest anything that students should do before they come here so that they are well prepared after they start their masters with respect to gaining skills or even application process wise?
Yeah, I think during the time when like you get an admit and you're going through the whole visa process, I think it really helps to one, strengthen your data structures and algorithms. I think that's like your first round across whichever field you want to like get into, like machine learning, be it SDE.
Mhm.
And I feel once you come into US, there's just so many things going on in terms of courses, adjusting to a new country, uh, coursework, so it gets difficult. So that for sure. Second is maybe working and polishing up on your resume,
Yep.
because you have the time, you can talk to different people, see how your resume looks like. Because, like I said, you're literally applying as soon as you come or even before you come, right? So you can always do this before. Um, Talking to different seniors, seeing what worked for them, what didn't work for them, and you can figure out what courses you want to take. Sure, I would say there's not enough. You can always plan, but then you also want to go with the flow, right? But you can always have like experiences and seeing what works and what doesn't work before coming. Um, but yeah, I think those are my tidbits.
Okay, I mean, I think that's very good point as you mentioned here. And now, since you're working in the industry for 4 years, do you see a change in roles or skills required to excel in ML fields or in an ML role for somebody who started in 2020 versus who's going to start 5 years later in 2025?
Yeah, uh I would say yes, because I feel like now you have, definitely we didn't have ChatGPT back then. We didn't even have like we didn't have these tools even at work. But I think now it's taken in the sense that how can you be a better engineer using these AI tools? So nobody's against it. Everybody's encouraged to use it because it only helps in productivity. So I think in terms of roles, one thing that is consistent is irrespective, your foundations have to be strong. Uh, I feel the whole point of knowing the syntax has kind of reduced. Like nobody expects you to know this is how you write, this is how you create a pandas data frame, or this is how you do things, because you can always just Google it or do like use ChatGPT. So I
Mhm.
think the focus here is more on an applied AI, because you have these ready LLMs out there, and all firms are like trying to see how they can build systems around it.
Yep.
So I think from roles, they are becoming a little more applied roles. And from a skills perspective or from an interview perspective, I think it's more how well you understand the fundamentals and you understand where to fit what. Each of these algorithms or each of these, there are so many tools out there, right? So to maybe have that clear understanding of when to use what for your business use case is, I think, more critical now than how to set it up and how to use it.
Makes sense. Yeah. I think it's important to understand that ChatGPT and other tools have limitations as well, because oftentimes we just blindly believe that and it ends up hurting us. So definitely having a great foundation is important so that you understand where to use it just as a tool for reference and where you can like
Yeah.
choose the data that you get from it.
You still need a human in the loop. Like AI is not going to take over as of yet. Yeah.
Hopefully, because you often hear that AI is going to take everyone's role. Hopefully, that's not the case.
Yeah.
And I often get a question from students that they want to be a machine learning engineer, but they have no idea what a machine learning engineer does. So, could you tell us a little bit about what exactly the role of a machine learning engineer is in a finance company, for example?
Sure. Yeah, I think there are different hats that you don as a machine learning engineer. And I think one clear distinction is machine learning researcher versus engineer. So
Okay.
I think researcher would be somebody who focuses mostly on like just building the models, training, increasing the model accuracy, coming up with, maybe finding the best algorithm out there and tweaking that. A machine learning engineer, I would say, is more end to end in terms of you help build systems around that algo.
Mhm.
So it could be like different firms have different names, right? Sometimes people call them data science, sometimes people call them machine learning. But it's the end-to-end pipeline. So when I say all the way from like the data coming in, talking to the stakeholders, figuring out the requirements, to the data, to doing like the whole EDA process, analyzing it, figuring out, and then you build a model which, let's say, you work along with a researcher, and then you also focus on deploying it. What's the best way to deploy? What's the best way to do model monitoring, see whether your model is performing as expected, do A/B testing. You want to release new models, you put some as candidate models and see how the performance metrics are. So I feel in firms that are non-tech, like more like finance firms, the teams are smaller and they work on one product. So what happens is you don't have different teams to do different things. You don't have like a testing team or you don't have like a data team. You build one product and you don't your, at different parts of the project life cycle, you are at different phases. And that's similar to how my experience is as well at Goldman. So we are a pretty small team and we work on one product end to end, which is pricing for certain financial assets. So, so yeah, at different times we either be like on the data side or you're on the engineering side, and then you're on running experiments.
Okay, so it seems more like a collaboration between the researchers as well as the engineers from developing the model to doing the testing. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good summary. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I could infer because I don't work in this sector. But another thing I was very curious on is when you were applying for a role in an investment banking company, did you need to have a fair bit of background in investment banking, or did you need to know anything, or you can learn everything as you start?
Yeah, that's actually a very common question, and I had the same question actually because like with my background, I've never worked in finance, right? So I think at an internship, new grad level, finance knowledge is not required. It's not a must-have, but it's definitely a good to have. But if you do have prior experience, it obviously helps you pick up things quicker. Also, there is a difference if you're joining in as like on the tech side or maybe as a strat. So sometimes in finance companies, when you're strat, they expect you to know a little bit of finance because you're working more closely with the business.
What is a
Uh,
spread?
a strat is somebody who works like with the trading desk or like an investment banker, or they're more on the business side as compared to like maybe more like a horizontal or horizontal where we are on the engineering and we're trying to give services to different divisions, right? So there you sit with one desk, you sit with one specific, let's say, stock equity desk or a bond trading desk, and then you work with them for that product. So yeah, so to your question, I feel, but one thing that helped me, I think, after I interned, was I realized that you need to know finance, I think, to maybe succeed even
Yep.
on the job. So NYU had a good option to take an external course. So I came back, and in my final semester, I ended up taking a course from Stern, which
Okay.
is Foundations of Finance, which
Mhm.
is like a very basic finance course that tells you about, how market structures and how price and yield and all these things move. So I think it's always good. So if you know, let's say you're getting into this firm and you already have an intern full time, it's always good to maybe understand the domain. Because on the job, yes, you are expected to learn on the job. And as ML engineers, like we work in different industries, it's very important to know the domain. Else you will probably not. Yeah.
Right, but then students can also get motivation from you that your experience was in healthcare and also in retail, but then you took the courses and you excelled in finance. So definitely it's not impossible.
It's not. You learn on the job, and I think the team has been very like collaborative and very helpful. You need that support. Also like talking to like the stakeholders. Yeah, it helps you learn.
Yep, I hear a lot from a lot of other people who are working in different firms that collaboration is something which companies take pride on in the United States in particular. So
Yeah.
I guess that's all we here for, right? I mean, get the work satisfaction that we have always craved for while we were students.
Yeah, I completely agree. Considering working back here and working in India versus here, I feel here they really give importance on understanding why you're building something, like
Right.
the business aspect of it, rather than just be like, oh, do this task, right? So they really value that and value collaboration.
Great. And going back to NYU, did you do any on-campus jobs apart from courses?
I did. I think, to be fair, New York is a pretty expensive city to live in. But also, I think it's more you want to gain that teaching assistantship, RA assistantship kind of experience, which I didn't have back in India. I got my TA in the first semester.
How did that happen?
That's yeah, it was a lot of emailing a lot of people. But I think one trick, and I also got this from a senior, so I would like to give it pass it on, I would say, is usually when you apply for teaching assistantships, you take that course, you excel in that course, you let's say get an A or like the top grade, and then you reach out to a professor saying, hey, I want to be a TA for this course. But undergrad courses you've already taken, right? As a grad student, you've already finished those in your undergrad, so you've already met the prerequisite. So one thing I did, apart from just applying to like grad courses or on Handshake, which was the portal that we used, was I reached out to a lot of undergrad professors. And luckily, and it was like a basic intro to Python programming, which has been kind of my bread and butter for a while. So had a quick interview and then reached out. So I think definitely reaching out to professors, undergrad professors in your own field,
Mhm.
need not be computer science, and maybe reaching out to different schools. I know a lot of people, a lot of my friends have done TAs in like different schools, but the same domain, computer science. So that also helps you get one probably in the first semester itself.
And by different schools, you mean like other schools of the same university, right? Because it has.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, a fun fact here is that I also use the same policy. And when I
Okay.
was a student, I got my first role in the on-campus job area. I mean, I was a TA from the first semester.
Oh, nice.
That
Okay.
was also for an undergraduate course, which I had excelled. So, and that really helped to continue the same teaching assistantship throughout my master's because the same professor was teaching some other course the next semester. So it just became like a cycle and it was pretty smooth.
Right, right.
That people are following that strategy and it helps them because a lot of people focuses on only being TA for grad courses and it can't be possible from the very first semester.
Yeah, for sure. So you have two proofs that it works now.
Yeah, we have two proofs and that should be more than enough at the moment.
Yeah.
And aside from work, what are some other activities do you do? Anything, any hobbies as such?
Yeah, I think now, outside of the student uh, life, I think now there's a little more work-life balance in terms of pursuing hobbies. I love playing board games. We actually, there's like a meetup that happens where I live, and then we go and there's like strategy board games or just fun board games over the weekend. Usually, so we do 5 days in person. So it's always the weekends which where I get time to do that. I love playing the badminton, so again, get some workout there done over the weekend. So I think these two keep me occupied.
You have meetups for board games as well. So meetup for jobs, meetup for networking,
Yes.
and a meetup for board games.
But the board game is the fun component. It just after a 5 day work week, you just go have fun. Yeah, meet a lot of new people. It's similar interests, I feel. I think that's how meetups I like it because meet people who you relate to and whom you can like have a nice chat with.
Yeah, it's like meeting like-minded people and having a
Exactly.
nice conversation at the end of the day.
Exactly.
And are you still in the you're still in the New York area, right?
I am. I am.
How is
Yeah.
the life in New York?
It's fast, it's great. I love the city. And luckily for me, I went to school here, so my grad school friends are also here, some of them. So it's a good community here. There's always tons and tons of things to do in the city, like something or the other is happening. I think the challenge here is now just finding the time and prioritizing when to do what. So be it like exploring new cuisines or just going for events or so that's it's fun. I think New York is it gives you the opportunities. I would summarize it as, it's the best of both worlds.
Yep.
There are places where you can go relax, go to Central Park, just have a day out, get away from the hustle bustle, or like the meetups and conferences, go, charge, see how you can grow your career. It has everything for everybody, and that's something I really like.
Yep, and I've heard that one lifetime is not enough to explore whole of New York.
It's not.
Let's see. I mean, we still have quite a few years to live. Let's hope if we can get it done.
Yeah.
And since we are coming towards the end, do you have any concluding comments or suggestions for the incoming class of 2025?
Uh, sure. I think my 2 cents would be like just be excited. You're coming to a new place. Sure, I know there is a lot of the industry is probably not the best shape right now, but don't get deterred. Um, have a plan in mind as to this is probably what my focus is going to be. Um, Try new things, explore new things, make, have like um friendships are very important here that you build. I think that's also something important. And definitely have your fundamentals clear in terms of like any company, anything are going to be testing you on your fundamentals. So this is probably the right time for you to upskill and keep that strong before you get into again another corporate rat race once you arrive in US. So these would be my 2 cents.
Okay, so it's basically working on things which are in your control and not worry about, like, I know the market is pretty bad, but we can't help it at the moment.
Right,
Rather
right.
brushing up your skills now when the time is there than later, because life gets busy. Once you start your masters, like
Yeah.
years will pass by in a blink of an eye. So
Yeah. And too many things go on, right? You're doing teaching, you're figuring out TAs, you're figuring out internships, you're figuring out coursework. You also want to explore the city. So I feel that you'll be juggling too many things. Yeah. So prioritization again is I feel very important.
great. I mean, I guess we can have this conversation for as long as possible. And I have loads to learn from you because you're a machine learning engineer. And I hope in the future we'll invite you for one more episode when you'll be a little bit more experienced, probably a senior machine learning engineer or whatever the job title will be at the time. But thank you, Niharika, for your time today. I hope the students will gain valuable insights when they watch this episode. And I'm pretty sure lots of students will reach out to you for tips and tricks of how to be successful as ML engineer in the US.
Thank you so much, Debru. Thanks for having me. It was great chatting with you.
Likewise. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. Got questions or suggestions? Drop me an email at debrouponair@gmail.com. Catch you in the next episode. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.